Hello and welcome to our panel discussion on AIOps. I'm your moderator, Josh Doherty. I'm so excited to have you here. I have joining me today 4 experts on this subject from both Redapt and AWS. So I want to take a second to introduce them. First, we have Rizwan Patel from Redapt, the Field Chief Technology Officer. Hi, Rizwan. We also have Jerry Meisner, Practice Lead of Modern Data Center and DevOps. Hey, Jerry. And from the AWS side, we have Lucy Hartung, Senior Business Development Manager. Hi, Lucy. Thanks for joining us. And Bobby Hallahan, who's a Senior Solution Architect for Observability. Hey, Bobby. Great. Well, let's dive in and start the conversation. Rizwan, I'd like to send the first question over to you. Can you talk about what AIOps is and why organizations should be considering adopting it?
Sure, thanks, Josh. AIOps, which stands for Artificial Intelligence for IT Operations, is an emerging technology, and the definition, like the space, is fluid. The way I like to think about it is AIOps is a technology which combines the characteristics of artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning, ML, to automate, and that's the key, automation, data correlation, enable root cause analysis, and deliver insights. Insights being both predictive and prescriptive across the entire enterprise ecosystem by accessing and combining cross application data and leveraging it to create a baseline, a customized, personalized self learning model, and using the model to deliver insights such as real time anomalies, proactive, filtered, actionable, again, key being actionable alerts, minimizing noise, and helping IT and business prioritize where they need to spend time, reducing not just cost, but also helping increase revenue, mitigate risks, and elevating brand reputation through the reduction of MTTD, mean time to detect, MTTI, mean time to investigate, MTTR, mean time to resolve, and helping achieve SLO metrics.
I think Rizwan nailed it.
Cool. Well, Jerry, coming over to you next, I have a question really around the fact that we don't live in a perfect world, right? Outages and equipment failures, they happen. And obviously, AIOps can help reduce things like mean time to recovery or MTTR, as Rizwan talked about, for IT. How does that work?
Yeah, so AI ops works by ingesting data and events from various sources, which could include system or hardware failures. Today, you usually have an end user that would react to that system failure, or they'll get a page, and they'll begin to make API calls against the cloud, or maybe something like VMware on premise, to replace that failed system. In many cases, these alerts have a delay in being triaged or prioritized before the work can even begin on them. AI ops can work to triage, prioritize those almost immediately, including rich details about the issue pulled from multiple data sources, which immediately makes the issues more actionable to the monitoring team, saving some time. As similar alerts are generated over time, automation can be crafted to perform common operations and leave the incident response team available to handle uncommon scenarios, resulting in higher resiliency and much faster MTTR for both common and the uncommon scenarios. AI ops can also be used to predict impending resource exhaustion, which can lead to proactive operations rather than reactive operations. So if you see that system's approaching a disk height, or it's constantly at the high-end CPU, or something along those lines is failing in conjunction with that system, we can react to that early instead of waiting for it to fail and responding.
Excellent. Anyone else have anything to add there around MTTR for IT? Perfect.
I would say definitely a +1 on specifically on the proactive nature of that. So let's say being able to predict resource exhaustion or any other type of anomalous behavior before it occurs, I find is for most customers one of the more appealing aspects of being able to implement AI ops in their organization. So yeah, definitely a +1 on that.
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, what other benefits do AI ops provide for organizations, Rizwan?
Yeah, sure. Benefits provided by AI ops go beyond the typical traditional measures of cost reduction, cost optimization. Rather, It covers a much wider scope, transcending business metrics related to increasing revenue generation, since it can and does help in proactively identifying and alleviating issues, preventing lost sales, customer churn, and specifically, when applied to cybersecurity use cases, helps reduce risk and elevate brand reputation. Additionally, rather than treating the technology as a standalone, enterprises that adopt and integrate AI ops with their ITSM, CMDB systems have seen dramatic benefits resulting from automated knowledge management capture and reuse, accelerated ticket resolution, from more efficient routing, tracking, handling, and typically have seen a reduction in the number of monitoring tools such as APM, application performance monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, network performance monitoring, RUM, real user monitoring, etc., that they needed prior to integrating AI ops in their ecosystem. Finally, I thought this metric would be compelling to our audience. Companies surveyed by Enterprise Management Associate ranked AI ops as the most successful IT analytics investment with 81% indicating that the value they got from AI ops exceeds its cost, including 42% who said that it does so dramatically.
Nice. So if this is such a valuable tool and people are recognizing it as a very valuable tool for their enterprise, what are some of the misconceptions that keep organizations maybe from implementing AI ops or from investing in it? Jerry, do you have thoughts on that?
Certainly, hiring the folks that know how to use some of the email and AI tools, hiring automation engineers to help assist with the automation endpoints that come after that. Those types of things would have an impact.
All right. So we know that tons of people are seeing the value of AI ops and implementing it in their enterprise. What are kind of the steps that someone should take to begin adopting it, Jerry?
Sure. So the first step to adopting AI ops would be to identify a business case that AI ops could help with. So determining how much impact something like downtime has on a particular product within an organization, especially in terms of dollars and reputation, really helps set up a cost benefit analysis that can be used to determine how much budget to set aside for implementation and run rate of an AI ops solution. The next thing would be to identify a potential AI ops solution and the effort to implement that solution, including the maintenance and long-term, manageability of it. There are some great resources out there that are already, doing a compare and contrast against a lot of the AI ops solutions, and we're going to discuss one of those, as a later part of this panel. Once you have identified the platform that you want to work with, you'll start with a small use case, which might include a couple of data ingest sources that already exist within the organization, and begin elevating more meaningful tickets and alerts for the folks that are already monitoring those systems. It does help to already be leveraging infrastructure as code or other configuration management automation tools, because the promised benefits are realized ultimately as you begin to tie those tools and processes into the tickets, issues, and alerts that are generated through the AI ops ingestion platform.
I now want to switch the conversation over to the cloud. And we're lucky to have some folks from AWS here. So I want to dive in specifically thinking about AWS and hear from you, Lucy, about really how does AWS enable AI ops for enterprises?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us here. So one of the great things about the cloud and AWS is you can really enable AI apps as a whole, or do it in the steps, right? Whether you're building everything on the cloud on AWS or migrating existing infrastructures onto AWS, we have several offers for AI apps in enable services that can assist around observability for your operation teams. Um, from simply enable CloudWatch anomaly detection to make your existing alarm smarter, to enabling and configuring X-ray insights, Amazon DevOps Guru, Guard Duty, or more, AWS provide you several options. A lot of them are fully managed services that was pre-trained machine learning model to recognize and surface anomalous behavior. This means that you don't really need to have existing ML expertise in-house.
Nice. Bobby, I'm interested if you could add to that. Obviously, a lot of benefits that Lucy just walked through, but why are some other reasons that, or what are some other reasons that AWS is a good place for AI ops?
Yeah, awesome question, and thank you for that. So really, I think this kind of boils down to three things. The first, which Lucy mentioned to a bit, is customer choice. So when it comes to leveraging AI ops or getting started, there are several options in which you can do so on AWS. Right? We can start with SageMaker, where you're building your own ML models. You can look to include other managed AI offerings, such as anomaly detection for CloudWatch alarms, or leveraging DevOps Guru or X-Ray Insights, where it's all right there. As long as you have those output signals, our tooling is able to predict and identify anomalous behavior on your behalf. So then at that point, it just becomes, how do I consume these findings? How do I respond to this anomalous behavior that's being reported for me? The next part is innovation, right? So when we take a look, our service teams are always looking to improve our services and add new and improved features into our AI offerings. Just for reference, take a look at the What's New page for SageMaker. We're consistently and constantly releasing new services and features around SageMaker, as well as other offerings in CloudWatch, such as DevOps Guru or X-Ray Insights. And specifically with DevOps Guru, it's a very relatively new service, and there's a lot coming down the pipeline for us. And very excited to be for what's coming up in the future. But next, most importantly, I think it comes down to interoperability. So what makes AWS a great place for AI ops is many of the same things that it makes it a good place to run any cloud workload, right? The ability to leverage AWS services in conjunction with our other AI offerings. So let's take an example where we have insights coming from DevOps Guru. Those insights are sent to AWS EventBridge. And then from EventBridge, you can process that from a variety of different targets. You could do a fan out through SNS and consume it in multiple different downstream applications. You could target it to centralized event buses and centralized accounts and then process it from there. You can invoke Lambdas in response to those events and then do something about it and determine, is this something I need to take action to? Or then even to the extent of having that Lambda function or some sort of systems manager automation try to automatically remediate that type of event, given the prescriptive guidance that's coming from DevOps Guru. So not only are we surfacing, hey, here's a problem and we think it's something you need to know about, but we're also showing that there's prescriptive guidance on this is what we think the problem is. And this is some things you could do about it. Now, that very last step is just taking, how do we automate that in response? So I do feel a lot of the points that were made earlier, specifically around investing in people that can build and maintain these automations, is incredibly valuable and incredibly important.
Nice. I love that. And I think like you explained some of those benefits. And I know Jerry had talked previously about maybe how to adopt AI ops generally and like those first steps to take. But I'd love your thoughts on, say an organization wants to get started with the process right now. And what are the first steps they should take if they're looking at using AWS for their AI ops practice?
Yeah. So I think one of the first steps you look at, right, is making sure you're enabling whatever services that you want to enable that will produce these output signals for you, right? So by that, I mean, let's say you are using something like, anomaly detection, or you have your own models in SageMaker that are evaluating these output signals from your applications. Or let's say maybe, like I said earlier, right, we're using DevOps Guru or X-Ray Insights. All these are emitting output signals, and that's the very first step. And I think a key thing when it comes down to AI ops and just IT ops, generally speaking, is iteration. So without those events, you can't necessarily iterate on how do you get better with dealing with those. So I would say having them enabled is the first step. But then from there, understanding where to iterate and what to iterate on is incredibly important. And to help guide that, first thing I would say is, take a look at some of those current business level objectives and think about where and how we can improve on those goals. Finding low-hanging fruit, easy applications that you can experiment with, something that you can do a proof of concept with quickly, fail fast, iterate quickly. I think those are paramount when it comes down to AI ops. And I think this is something that we also spoke to earlier when it comes down to focusing it on business metrics, right? Because we can always look at MTTD, MTTI, MTTR, right? Having a more reliable application, having an application or workload that is more performant for your end customers, that's more reliable for your end customers, those are great things. Nobody's going to argue against that. But then being able to take that and elevate those to business level metrics, I think that's really where a lot of customers see value in AI ops. So understand what you are implementing, understand what you want to measure as your yardsticks for success, and then from there, iterate and expand over time. So like I said, definitely echoes a lot of the earlier points, but a little bit more specific to AWS.
Totally. Excellent. So I'd love to dive into some common use cases. And I know, Lucy, you've done some thinking about this. So can you share some use cases that you've seen customers leverage for AI ops?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the most straightforward use cases that I have seen customers start leveraging AI apps, it's around improving their operation productivities, right? By reducing false alarms. A lot of the services that Bobby mentioned earlier, right, is really surfacing that critical issues and reducing the false alarming that the operation team had to go sniff through and figure out what is real, what is not. So that's first one, and then second is reducing that investigating issue time, right? So we have seen operation teams are now be able to fast respond to an issue because of these AI app services are providing them additional guidance, providing them additional insight. So now they're able to get to the root cause faster based on those guided informations. Thirdly is about dynamically learning about metrics in the environment. In today's customer environment, nothing is ever static, right? Everything is dynamic. There's new things involved, introduced in the environment. There's application gets update. These AI app services can definitely help the operation teams to keep up to date with their alarms and then metrics by automatically detecting new things are being ingested into the environment. So that really reduce their time to manually set something up whenever there's a new thing coming into the environment. And then lastly, it's quite interesting one that we often see that developers are leverage some of those AI ops services to really get more visibilities into operations on how their application is being performed after they being developed, right? So it's really helping kind of shift left cultural for the developers now have more knowledge about the application they're being developed and how they're performing once it hit to production. So that gives them back the information really and product once the application being released. And here I want to share a great story that I worked with a customer recently that enabled one of the AI app services, Amazon DevOps Guru, and the services automatically ingest and detect anomalous behaviors via CloudWatch metrics. They were monitoring for a normal error and throttle, but they were not looking for something called provisioning concurrency spillover invocation. And in the simplest term, this means how many your functions are going over the concurrency that you set up for being able to scale easily. Going over this, that DevOps guru was caught this anomalous behavior, was really be able to help this customer preventing latency performance down the line. So the operation folks was able to leverage the insight of AI app services was providing to them to really helping preventing a real problem to happen down the line, right? So that's really the power of AI, where we know that there's some areas that people are looking for errors to detect, but there are a whole gray area of people might not be aware there's issue occurred. So the AI app services can really be a benefit to help catch these problems before it occurred.
Excellent. That's some really good, helpful, practical information about use cases and how people can benefit from AIOps. We're about to wrap up here, but before we go, I want to go back over to Rizwan and really hear from him. Like, if someone's been listening to this, they've gotten excited about the potential for AIOps for their organization. They're looking forward to maybe making that pitch to decision makers at the org. What is that elevator pitch that you'd recommend them using to build that momentum in their organization?
Sure, Josh. AI ops is more relevant now than ever before, influenced by the digital transformation wave that is sweeping through virtually every industry vertical, always on consumer and applications, elevated experience expected by consumers, necessitating a paradigm change from reactive to proactive response to issues. Market research company BCC Research estimates that the global market for AI ops will triple from almost 3 billion to 9.4 billion by 2026 at a compounded annual growth rate of 26%. Common misconceptions around AI ops being resource intensive, long lead time to show value, lack of tools and technologies are not nearly as applicable today. We tend to agree with Gartner's proclamation that there is no future in IT operations that does not include AI ops. And we at Redapt are excited about helping our customers and partners reap the benefits of AI ops integrated in their DevOps journey.
Awesome. Well, that about wraps it up for us. I want to thank, again, everyone for joining me. Thanks for coming on the panel. And I want to thank everyone who's watching our discussion today as well. If you want to learn more about AI ops, you can go ahead or even schedule some time with one of our Redapt's experts. You can do that by visiting redapt.com/contact and get in touch. Love to continue the conversation over there. But for now, this is time for us to wrap up. Thanks everyone for joining today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.